Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I have a scrapbook layout showcasing the brand new Perfectly Plaid rainbow pattern papers. I've also used a little bit of the watercolor Wishes paper with this particular layout and lots of Lawn Fawn dies. The flowers, the frames, the title, and even a little bit of stamping with the You Make Me are all Lawn Fawn products. I love that so many of the products that we love for card making can transition to scrapbook page layouts as well. So what I did first was went ahead and die cut a bunch of different frames using the Stitched Square Frames dies. This is from a previous release. Kind of laying them out and getting an idea of how I wanted the layout of my page to go. That's always my starting point when doing any kind of scrapbook page layout. Right now I am die cutting a bunch of flowers and leaves from the Perfectly Plaid Rainbow 6x6 paper pad. I decided to use this instead of the 12x12 papers because these already work perfectly with my Big Shot die cutting machine. So it really doesn't matter which papers you use. This way I just didn't have to trim anything down before die cutting it. Oftentimes the design is slightly smaller than the 12x12 size as well. In this case, I don't really know that that's to be true, but that's just my general thinking when using a 6x6 paper pad, and it makes it so easy to die cut lots of shapes if you use the smaller design. But if you only have the 12x12 papers, just trim them right down to 6 inches wide and they're just as easy to use that way. So I'm using the Flower Power dies for all the flowers, and I also die cut the Stitched Square Frames from some of the patterns because some of the frames are not going to hold photos, but they're going to hold pattern papers instead. This is where I'm pulling in all of that pattern paper. I am more of a solid kind of background girl, I've noticed throughout the years, or something with a very subtle pattern. And so what I did was I realized that this kind of lilac watercolor Wishes paper worked perfectly with the violet or lilac theme I had going here for my page. So I went ahead and used it for my background. Now you might see that stitching down in the bottom left corner. The way this was achieved was I took that 12x12 sheet of paper, and I have a wide format printer. It's a Epson Stylus Photo R2000 printer in case you're curious. And in a Word document, I just made my background a 12x12, figured out my spacing with all the indentions and everything like that, and then printed my journaling, ran it through the printer, and printed it. If you don't have a wide format printer, just print it on a smaller sheet of paper and create a little element down there at the bottom, a little box of journaling. To get my photos exactly the right size, I had previously scrapbooked these years and years and years ago. I mean, probably about the time that I took these photos. And the layout really wasn't my style. It was one of the first pages probably I ever did. And what I ended up doing was pulling them off. However, they had adhesive on the back, and so Xyron adhesive on the back, so they were a little tricky. It was actually the repositional adhesive, so they came off, but they were still super sticky. They really didn't need any adhesive, but trimming them down was kind of, it could be really tricky. For some of them I did trim them with my paper trimmer, but to make it even easier, you can take and put the photo, for example, these had the sticky adhesive on the back already. Normally they won't. Put them on your Big Shot, put the frame over it, use maybe some low tack tape to hold them in place, and run them through your Big Shot, and it's going to die cut that center square perfectly to do kind of an inlay inside of the die cut frame. That's going to make it a lot easier. This first photo, or the second photo rather, that I'm doing here, I just trimmed it down, and I had a heck of a time trying to get it to fit. It would have been so much easier to trim down the frame, put the frame right where I wanted it on the page, then go ahead and die cut the photo and just inlay the photo inside the frame. I'm going to do that for some of the, or a couple of the smaller ones, and it made it so much easier. I wanted my frames to have a little bit of dimension. So while the frames look awesome with that stitched detail, I felt like they needed a little bit bigger presence to really frame up these photos. And to do that, I die cut the frames several times. You can see I'm really having a hard time getting this one lined up. I'm going to die cut them several times and adhere them one on top of another. So each frame is actually 3 frames stacked on top of one. And it really gives a much nicer presence, but not a ton of bulk. Another thing I've noticed throughout the years of my scrapbooking, a lot of you maybe are newer viewers and don't remember, but I did really start off as a scrapbooker, and I scrapbooked a ton. Embellishments were kind of the big thing way back, and I notice a lot of my pages are super bulky. It's hard to get a ton of pages in a scrapbook, and you think at the time that you're never going to be able to fill up a scrapbook, and you realize really quickly that life moves pretty fast and you have lots of memories, and pretty soon you have loads and loads of scrapbooks. And for me, it just seems kind of clunky, and there's just so many that it's overwhelming at times. I have found that my style has greatly changed to more simple with a lot more paper embellishments like you see here. Things I either create myself or things that, I buy and use. I just really prefer any more simple, more less dimensional embellishments, things that I can make look like they're dimensional, but they don't take up near as much room as like metal embellishments and big badges and things like that. I still love using those, and I will use those a little bit here and there, but I have found I try to keep the bulkiness to a minimum so I can fit as many pages into an album as possible. This is one of my favorite designs for a scrapbook page. I call it kind of the quadrants. There's 4 quadrants. There's kind of a 6x6 area, 4 of those on a 12x12 page. And I like this because I kind of look at each quadrant as its own little area, and then I embellish it. So for example, the top left is 1, and it's kind of got that larger frame. The top right is 1, and it's got a set of 4 frames. The bottom right is another one. That's going to house another big photo and the title. And then the 4th quadrant is the bottom left, and that's got a couple of cute little frames. So it's got a trio of frames and the journaling. To tie it all together, I'm going to be placing one of those Flower Power layered flowers in the center. I'm stamping a little phrase here on a die cut banner. This is from the Extra Sentiment banners. The phrase is from the brand new Happy 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 stamp set. And then of course I'll be using the Scripty Happy die to make my nice large title there. Lawn Fawn has so many great large titles that work perfectly to create. They can be used for big sentiments on cards or titles on scrapbook page layouts. I just love that. I think it's really awesome. I've got a little bit of fun foam here. I'm going to stick it on both sides. This is to make that dimensional greeting. So while you might still love those chipboard greetings and things like that for scrapbook page layouts, if you don't have what you need and you have a die that's going to work, I love creating my own. I like to take the stick it on the foam, or the foam adhesive with the stick it on both sides, run it through my Big Shot to really make sure that it burnishes on that stick it to the fun foam. Then I'll remove one side of the backing paper, place my die, or place the pattern paper or cardstock on that, and then run it through with my die. This is going to die cut my title for my page and then carefully pop it out. And because it has stick it on both sides, it's already got its adhesive, it's already sticky. And that little bit of dimension with the fun foam is really going to be great to make the title really have some nice presence. The banner is going to go through that top loop of the word happy, and it's going to kind of be positioned down here along the bottom. I'm just going to pop up one side of my frame, I guess, to tuck that under. Kind of hide it under that. And I'm snipping off one end of the banner. But this is very much how I like to scrapbook anymore. I like lots of little banners. I like words. I like little word phrases. I like a nice die cut greeting, or not greeting, title most of the time. Some journaling, usually printed on the background or on a strip or on another element to kind of tie into the whole page. So in this instance, it ties into that fourth quadrant that I was talking about. And then some fun embellishments. For my flowers, using those Flower Power Lawn Fawn dies, in addition to the Perfectly Plaid rainbow pattern paper die cut flowers, I die cut a few from vellum to really create a pretty dimensional flower. And those vellum layers allow you to still see the pattern through, but maybe soften some of the layers, plus give that flower more flower petals and just more substance. A button is sewn to the center of each, and then I'll use some nice strong glue dots to attach those to my page, or my Permatac glue glider glue, because it's nice and strong. This first flower is going to be adhered right in the center, and that's what's tying all of those four quadrants together. When I do a page with quadrants like this, I generally try to find some sort of way to tie them all together then with elements kind of going throughout the page that are cohesive and tie everything together. And in this instance, it's the flowers. So we've got the flower in the center. There's also going to be a flower up in the little pattern paper boxes up in that top right quadrant. Again, same thing, sewing them together with a button in the center. Any of the dimensional embellishments I'm using are all things from my stash. I have not really got any new quote-unquote scrapbook supplies in a really long time. I tend to use the things I use for card making for my scrapbook page layouts. There's so many great dies and other things that the only thing I pretty much buy anymore is pattern paper, and then go ahead and create my own embellishments either with a manual die cutting machine or a digital die cutting machine like the Silhouette. Even these little sticker phrases are something that I've had in my stash forever. I don't even think the brand was still on them. I have no idea where they're from. You can just as easily print your own little greetings and cut them into strips and add them to your page. The last thing I did was put a few enamel dots. You can create your own with Nouveau Crystal drops if you want to, and some wood veneer embellishments. And that is going to finish up this Perfectly Plaid rainbow scrapbook page layout. Thanks for joining me today for this video showcasing the new Perfectly Plaid rainbow paper collection from Lawn Fawn. The supplies I've used to create this page are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos showcasing new Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.